Welcome to Outdoors and Country Living. My name is Leanne. I'm going to be making tomato sauce in this video, showing you how we do it at our house. We will also be water bath canning this tomato sauce for the pantry. I hope you stick around to see how we do this. So you're going to wash, core, and cut your tomatoes. We're using an electric food mill today to get the tomatoes pureed. Ours is electric. They do make manual versions. So we just cut our tomatoes so they fit down the chute of our electric food mill. We're going to puree this without all of the fussy prep. So using the food mill, we're getting our tomato puree. We have a large screen on our food mill, so a lot of the seeds are coming into the tomato puree. We do not mind the seeds. It's ejecting the skins and just giving us the tomato pulp. I will put the recipe in the video description, so be sure to reference that for making your tomato sauce. We don't mind the tomato seeds in our tomato puree or tomato sauce final product. This is a personal preference, I understand that. I will show you where in this process that I'm showing you that you could remove the seeds later on. So these food mills are, I think, an essential piece of equipment when you're serious about growing your own food and processing it. They have manual versions and electric versions. They're both an investment, but it's well worth it if you're serious about growing your own food and preserving it. We're glad to have one, that's for sure. So as the puree comes out, I'm just adding it to these large stock pots to cook down. So we're going to bring your tomato puree to a boil. You want to cook it uncovered the whole entire time. We have to cook this uncovered until it's reduced by about half. We're going to bring it to a boil, and then we will be reducing the heat. Make sure you stir it often to prevent scorching. So we're at a good boil now. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit and let this continue to cook down. This can take quite a while depending on the quantity you're making. I'm working up a large quantity, so it's going to take me a little time to cook these down. Just don't go too far from them. Again, be sure to stir often to prevent scorching, and you can see the reduction lines, it's starting to reduce. Here the sauce has thickened, it's reduced quite a bit. At this point, make sure you're stirring frequently to prevent it from burning. We're almost to the halfway mark. Okay, so it's reduced by about half at this point. I have turned the heat off. I'm stirring it. And I'm just going to let it sit here and cool down a little bit because it's very hot. So here's the sauce up close. I'm going to be using an immersion blender to make a smoother consistency. That's just my personal preference. So here I have the immersion blender going to smooth out this tomato sauce. This isn't a required step, it's just something I'm doing as my preference. So you can see the consistency is smoother. I'm just stirring it again and continuing to let it cool down a little bit. You could take it another step at this point and strain out the tomato seeds using a mesh strainer if desired. I'm leaving the seeds in because we don't mind them. Now it's time to fill our jars. I'm using pint jars. I will be adding 1 tablespoon of lemon juice to the pint jars. If you're using quart jars, add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So why do we use lemon juice? Lemon juice lowers the pH level, creating an environment where harmful bacteria cannot thrive. The taste is unnoticeable in canned tomato products. Citric acid powder can also be used. 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid powder equals 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I'm filling my jars to a 1/2 inch of headspace. Once our jars are filled, we're going to clean the rims before we add the lids and the bands. I just take a damp washcloth and wipe the rims of the jars off, removing any residue before I add the lid and the band. Put the lid and the band on fingertip tight. Don't over crank them, just until you meet resistance. By cleaning the jar rim, it ensures that you will get a seal unless the lid itself is faulty. These will be processed in a water bath canner. So our sauce was warm. I'm adding hot water to cover the jars by 1 to 2 inches. Since the sauce is warm, you would not want to add cold water on top because it could crack your jars. Once we get the jars covered by 1 to 2 inches of water, we're going to put the lid on the canner, bring it to a rolling boil. Once it's at a rolling boil, that's when you start your processing timer. Pints are going to process for 35 minutes at a boil, and quarts are at 40 minutes. Once the time is up, turn the heat off and remove the lid on the canner. Let the jars rest in the water for 10 minutes before you lift them out. This prevents siphoning and spewing of the tomato sauce. After the 10-minute rest period, lift your jars out of the water and then set them on a towel to cool for 12 to 24 hours. And you just canned tomato sauce. So these jars are sitting here and cooling for 12 to 24 hours. Look how pretty that is. That's going to be so good. How we use this tomato sauce will be in the video description as well, so be sure to reference that. Click the word more under this video for the details. That is a good day's work. Look how pretty that red tomato sauce is. So once the jars are cooled, I'm going to remove the bands. The seal is intact. I can hold the jar by the seal. The bands serve no purpose at this point. Once you've canned it and they've cooled, the bands are only to hold the lid on during the canning and cooling process. I'm just cleaning up the jars. You may notice a very slight sticky residue where the band was. That's normal. This one has a little bit of separation. Just a gentle shake will take care of that. With tomato products, sometimes you have a little separation. It's normal, nothing to be concerned with. Just shake the jar gently and it will go away. So that's how I make our homemade tomato sauce and can it for the pantry. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process as much as I've enjoyed showing it to you. I've been home canning for 28 years. I don't do everything by the book, but it works every time. Not one lid failed on this batch. That's pretty good. Take care. We'll see you on the next video. God bless you.